What savings rate do you need? I see a lot of people talking about 10% or 15%, or some people talking about how much they contribute to their retirement accounts. And I've made a few videos on why you should retire early, right? The math of time, tripling how much time you have in your day, not being exhausted. The number 19, how you can spend more time with your kids or your parents. I talked about the 3 phases, the go-go years, the go-slow years, and the no-go years. But I haven't really talked too much in these short videos on how to retire early, how to reach financial freedom and make work optional. And yeah, you can retire and then go do a job that you love. It doesn't mean you have to do nothing. And anybody who thinks you would retire to do nothing has no imagination and probably shouldn't retire early. But what savings rate do you need, right? This is one of the concepts that when I try to share, I get a lot of resistance. And feel free. Come at me in the comments. I don't mind resistance. If you invest in stocks, you can use the 4% rule. You can literally do the math on this is how much I need to save. And then you can figure out how much you can save each month and multiply that by how many months and years it's going to take you to save for that. If you invest in a business or if you invest in real estate, the way I did, I invested in buy and hold cash flow properties. I retired in 2022. After a little over 10 years of investing, I put $320,000 to work investing in my rentals to generate a little over $200,000 a year in pure cash flow that I now get to learn how to spend in retirement. But how much do you save? What is your saving rate? The first step to this is those people who are going to come at me in the comments that say, I can't save anything because I don't make enough money. The concept of I will save money when I start to make more money is why so many people retire broke or never retire at all. That's why statistically, right, you can go right, the Bureau of Statistics right now has 48% of Americans between the age of 55 and 65 have zero saved for retirement. Do you think that in their entire life they never had the ability to save? So the first step is understanding the concept that I learned in the last decade of working. So my last decade of working, I was working at a CDL school. I got demoted down to the president of the company, and I did a lot of training for our managers because we never hired managers. We trained in-house and promoted people to become managers. So there was a lot of in-house training to do. One of the first things to understand was KPIs. If you're managing something like employees, a business, or your personal finance, if it isn't measured, it can't be improved. So if you have that concept of I can't save because I don't make enough, and you think you're going to save more when you make more, you'll never start saving. No matter how much you make, life creep will keep it up to where you don't make enough to save. We get good at saving when we don't make enough, and then it gets easier to save as we make more, as long as we control life creep. So the first step for you in your savings rate is to start saving an actual number that you track. Make it $1 a month. It doesn't have to be something that impacts your ability to eat or drive or pay for things. But if you can put $1 a month into an account that you don't touch or a nightstand, that's measurable. Now you can start to think, which streaming services do you actually need? If you cancel them, can you save that? How many times do you eat out a week? How many meals can you plan? What things can you cut to actually increase your savings rate to get that dollar to an actual recognizable percentage of your income that might have an impact on your future? And so then people start thinking of, well, my company has a retirement account. 1/3 of the people in the United States with access to a 401k contribute to it. 1/3. So 60% of the people who could put money into a retirement account aren't even choosing to do that. Giving up sometimes on company matches. Not all 401ks have it, but if you're not getting at least the match, I think you're giving up free money. Now, I'm not a fan of retirement accounts for retiring early, but we're talking about what's your savings rate to retire or retire early. Start with something that you can measure so that you can improve it. Then look at what are you contributing to retirement accounts and why do retirement accounts work? Because the contributions happen before you see your money. So if you could pay yourself up first, like my son talked about in our video yesterday, he set up auto withdrawals from his paychecks so that on the 5th and 20th, a certain amount of money would go into an account that he wasn't using to spend so that saving could happen. Now, this can be used to tackle debt or build that nest egg towards early retirement. The more you can contribute, the higher you can have that savings rate, the more likely you are to be able to retire early. Now, I'm making these short videos for those people who would never click on a 2-hour video. If you want your questions answered during a live stream, every Tuesday afternoon at 4 p.m. Pacific, I do a live stream where I answer all of the questions that come in. So if you start a savings rate of 10 or 15%, one of the first things you can do is automate those payments. Make it go to where it's coming out of your paycheck before you see it, like a retirement account does. Because they did a study on the most effective stock accounts, right? The highest performing stock accounts belonged to people who had died, so they didn't mess with it. The second highest performing stock accounts, portfolios, belonged to people who forgot they had them. So again, take it out of your consciousness that this is happening and make it automated. And the third highest form of performing stock portfolio was ran by a cat named Orlando. Here's how I looked at my savings rate and how I made it possible to retire early. Now, for stocks, you have the 4% rule. You can do the math. For business and real estate, I would look at it the way that I did. I didn't want a savings rate of 10% or 15%. And when I say something ridiculous like a 50% savings rate is not enough, people say, well, there's no way you can save 50% of your income. You're right, because I'm not talking about saving 50% of your income. I'm talking about the percentage of the money coming in that you can save. I started investing after getting laid off from law enforcement. I was a single parent with 3 kids, and I started teaching at a CDL school making $17 an hour. I played World of Warcraft on weekends and nights and sold things online as a side hustle to make extra money so that I could save. I purchased a duplex after 2 years of saving and working in the new field, so I was bankable. And I lowered my housing costs, and I added that to my savings rate. And then, so this could be the same if you're growing a business. As your business generates cash flow, how much is it creating? When I bought that rental, it lowered my housing cost from $1,500 a month to $300 a month. It's a significant increase in your savings rate when you're only making $17 an hour. 2 years later, I bought another duplex. So if you're growing a business, what would happen in 4 years of growth, right? 2 years to buy my first duplex, 2 years to buy the next one. I slowly added cash flowing assets. So if you're growing a business, you are slowly increasing the cash flow that that business creates. So that eventually the cash flow from my rentals or the cash flow from your business can be more than it costs you to live your life. So around the 6-year mark of investing in real estate, I started making more money off my rentals than I was making when I worked in law enforcement before I got laid off. And I started living as much as I could off of my rental income. Meaning that I didn't have a 10 or a 15% savings rate with my earned income from my job. My goal, my target to be able to retire early, to make sure that work was optional so that I can then go do a job that I didn't care what it paid, or do a passion project that didn't pay anything at all for a few years, like making a YouTube channel that I don't know how many months it was before I made a penny. And it was over 3 years before I had a month that made over $1,000 from YouTube. You can make money from other things like Amazon affiliates, like the links in the description below, where you look at the locks I use in my rentals or the motion sensor LED lights I use in my rentals. And I can make a small commission that doesn't cost you anything if you use that link to buy anything off of Amazon, not just the things the link describes. And you can do that in your social media too. So when my savings rate from my job passed 100% around 2018, I was making enough off my rentals to where from 2018 to 2022, I didn't touch 1 penny from work for my life. No emergencies, no home repairs, no travel, no luxuries. Everything was paid for from the passive income from the assets that I acquired. If you want to retire early, your target savings rate should be 100% or more. Because if you can only save 5% or 95% of your earned income, you can't retire early. If you can only save 95% of your income coming in from your job, you still needed 5%. That's not when we retire. When I had a 4-year litmus test of everything that can happen in these 4 years, like a pandemic, an eviction moratorium, a stock market crash, go on a date, like a ridiculous thing to do, and I survived without having to touch a penny from work, then I had the confidence to pull the trigger and retire early. And my goal is with this video, so I'm going to wrap up here in a minute to make it as short as possible for those people who will never click on a 2-hour video. Feel free to come at me in the comments when I say something ridiculous like, you should be working to be able to save 100% of your income. That is how you retire early. Yes, when you're first starting, that is not the goal that you're going to hit next month. Next month, you're probably going to take that $1 and maybe turn it into 15 every month. But a year later, 4 years later, once you can prove to yourself that you don't need the money from your job, now you can go and do any job you want without thinking of how much money it makes. And for some of us, that job is as much nothing as you can fit into a day.